Kenneth, as you know, I do a podcast. I do a podcast on leadership. And I guess the thing that struck me about your second annual Ziglar Explosion is you're really going to incorporate a wide variety of topics, from some almost into the weeds business topics of going behind the numbers to inspirational.
The Texas Hill Country is one of the most beautiful places on earth. In this podcast, recent Hill Country resident Tom Fox visits with the people and organizations that make this one of the most unique areas of Texas. Join Tom as he explores the people, places, and their activities of the Texas Hill Country.
Today I visit with Kenneth O'Neal and his presentation of the second annual Ziglar Explosion. Hello everyone, this is Tom Fox back for another episode, and today I have back with me Kenneth O'Neal. But we're not here to talk about Kenneth's work. We're here to talk about a great event Kenneth is hosting and chairing for us in January. So, Kenneth, first of all, welcome back to the
Tom.
podcast.
I appreciate it so much. An honor to be here. And thank you for the opportunity to share our event in January of 2023.
So could you remind our audience about your work as a Ziglar certified licensed coach and trainer? What does that entail, and what is the message you try to get out when you lead a training?
The message, of course, comes from the philosophy of Zig Ziglar. For more than 50 years was instrumental in impacting the lives of over 250 million people. Mr. Ziglar, Zig Ziglar, passed away in 2012, and his son, Tom Ziglar, took over the business and became the head of the Ziglar Corporation. And we started at that time, I think it was in 2014, they had their first classes of leadership and certification in life coaching, executive coaching, and they call it their legacy coaching. And I was in class number 8, which was in October of 2015. And what that gave me by going through all of the training and all of the teaching and working with the Ziglar Corporation is I became licensed and certified in all of the information, all of the resources of Zig Ziglar. And he wrote almost 50 books. And his primary theme is that you can have everything in life that you want to have if you just help and serve enough other people. So I believe in that philosophy because it comes down to my purpose. And when I'm training and coaching and teaching others, I look upon the intent. I believe we should live a life of intentionality. So you must prepare to plan and set your goals, set your dreams for what you want from your life. And we believe that you can, wherever you can start today, because you have inside you, you've been designed to have an abundant life, to create a legacy and leave a legacy. And so I teach you can go from where you are, even if it's still struggling with the past and a lot of baggage maybe in your past experiences, but you can go through it and you can create a legacy. We will all create a legacy, and we would want it to be one that what I say is that you can leave with your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren. And there's a big difference between a legacy and an inheritance. Inheritance is something that is, maybe you received $100,000. But when we're talking about legacy, we're talking about the memories and all of the beliefs, the mindset, and leave all those great memories, and the heart of the person creating the legacy is left in the people that are here after they are gone. So I want to share that philosophy, and that's what our event coming up about is.
So that brings us to our next topic, which is the second annual Zig Ziglar Explosion. Let 2023 be the year for the best you. Could I maybe step back, Kenneth, and ask, what was the first annual Ziglar Explosion, and how did that lead to the second annual?
We scheduled in January of 2022, thinking that everything with COVID would be okay, but we got lots of responses from people saying, no, January is too soon because of COVID in the winter. we actually ended up doing it in March of 2023. We did it at the Salvation Army Kroc Center in Kerrville, Texas. And it was done by Tom Ziglar and myself. We split it into 4 sessions, and Tom did 2 and I did 2. And I called it the Ziglar Explosion. And it ended up being a local kind of thing with people from San Antonio and other cities in the Hill Country coming by, and we made some great new friends, created some relationships for referral. And then after that was over, I got to thinking of continuing on an event each year under the Ziglar name. And that's why we're calling this the second annual Ziglar Explosion. Now, the one that we did in early 22, that was just Tom and I. We did that. And we took 4 topics from the Ziglar Vault and we talked about them. I did goal setting and achievement. I did winning relationships, material that all came directly from the resources of Ziglar under my teaching with them. And then Tom Ziglar had a brand new book that just came out at the end of last year called The 10 Virtues for Leaders in Disruptive Times. And then he talked about that book, and then he talked about the overall wheel of life assessment that we begin with each person that we begin coaching with. But this year, all right, talking about the 2023, January 6th and 7th, 2023, once again, we're going to be at the Kroc Center. And I think that we've got 9 individual speakers coming for this 2-day event. And I think it's just going to be great. And we're really looking to expand the concept. Instead of being just training and coaching and teaching philosophy of Ziglar, motivation, inspiration, we are going to reach out, and I've come up with things that I enjoy. And one of them is history, especially Texas history. So we're going to do a couple of segments on Texas history. We're also going to have the mayor come in and welcome everybody. We're going to talk about banking. We're going to talk about your financial statements. And of course, we'll once again talk about the virtues of great leaders. We'll talk about winning relationships. We'll talk about goal setting. So I think it's just going to be a phenomenal event.
So you mentioned really the scope of the event, Kenneth, and of course you mentioned Texas history. I actually wanted to go through the list of speakers because it's really impressive. You talked about Tom Ziglar. I'm going to exempt myself from this, and I'll just say that I'm going to talk about podcasting for business, which is something that I'm pretty passionate about, of business owners using podcasting to help get their message out. But let's go to Texas. Who do you have to come speak to us about Texas history, and why do you think he's such a good speaker?
We're bringing in, of course, is Dr. Donald Frazier from Schreiner University, and he is the executive director of the Texas Center there on the campus at Schreiner University. And he has been directed by the governor of the state of Texas for some clarification on the history of Texas. And he is such a wonderful guy, just a great gentleman. And I am really excited that we were able to get him to be on the program.
As important as Texas history is, there may be one thing that's more important than the state of Texas, and that's high school football. And so you've got a high school football angle that I don't think can be beat. So why don't you tell us about that and who that's
been in high school football in Texas? They always remember the teams in the 1980s and 1990s from Permian High School in West Texas. And one of the coaches on the national team, and I think was it 1985, 96, something like that. And they had a couple of state titles. And then for 10 or 12 years, they won 90% of their games. So we're bringing in Dr. Nathaniel Hearn. We call him Coach Nate Hearn. And the reason he is so famous is because of that program on Friday night. Friday Night Lights, which is football in Texas. And he wrote a book called Friday Night Lights. And so he will be here to share with us, and he's opening up his schedule and his time. He will do a session on Friday and a session on Saturday for our event, the seminar, but he's also going to speak on Sunday morning. And the audience at that time will be the youth. We want to go down to maybe as young as 4 or 5 years old. Maybe they're just starting t-ball, or maybe they're playing midget football or something. But he's going to open up and he'll speak to them. And we're taking it all the way to university level athletes. So he really, of course, his heart is in the youth. He loves sports, and he especially loves high school football. And he's a great friend of mine. I just love the guy. He is terrific. And I think, like you said, everybody will be excited about Coach Hearn coming to our event.
You've also are going to take a bit of a, maybe not a deep dive, but you're actually going to talk some business and talk to people about how to not only do business, but maybe go behind the numbers, explain what numbers mean to an professional accountant like yourself, and what they might mean for the business person.
Yes,
could you give us maybe a little preview of that, Kenneth?
I spent many years as a certified public accountant. I was with the international firm of Touche. And so what we're going to do is, I think it's going to be called Looking Behind the Numbers. So we're going to figure out what are the key factors in reviewing your business results. And we'll do balance sheets, profit and loss statements, and get into what do they mean in talking, like you said, behind the numbers in the financial statements. But to add on to me talking about cash accounting versus accrual basis accounting, I have a really good friend of mine from Oklahoma who is also a Ziglar certified legacy coach, and he was a banker for 30 years. So he's going to make a presentation on how do you go to the bank? How do you work with your banker? Because especially in agriculture, a lot of times you have to go get a loan, you plant your crop, you harvest your crop, and then you can pay the banker back. So the banking is very important, especially, as I said, in that agricultural area. But he will be going into what is the lender? What are they looking for with your numbers?
Kenneth, we've got one speaker who's got a bit of a musical bend to him, and that, I believe, is Kevin Williams. Can you tell us, number one, what Kevin is going to speak on, but equally importantly, what's the musical component that Kevin is going to bring to the
question,
event?
and thank you for asking about Kevin. He's such a great guy. But Kevin is going to speak on winning relationships with 3 of the most important components in your life. And of course, the number one component is our Creator. The second one, he's going to talk about winning relationship with yourself. What do you say when you talk to yourself? And then the third one, of course, will be your family and your friends and people that you love and care about. And then from the musical standpoint, Kevin is going to do a solo concert for us in the middle. We've got his schedule right now for Friday night. And he's very humorous. He tells some great stories, great fun stories, and he will be sharing and playing for us and singing. And we have that potentially scheduled at the Calu Theater here in Kerrville. But I think everybody will love him from his heart, and I think they'll find him very, very funny, and he will continue with the hope and the encouragement that comes from being a licensed certified coach.
So, Kenneth, this is over 2 days, January 5 and January 6. Will there be breakfast, lunches, the opportunity perhaps to break some bread at dinner?
Actually, it's on January 6th and 7th, isn't it? Are you looking at a calendar? Friday and Saturday. Okay.
I don't have a 2023 calendar, so let me see.
I think it's the 6th and 7th, Friday. Okay.
The phone says Friday the 6th and 7th.
And then, of course, Coach Hearn will be speaking on Sunday morning on the 8th. And then Kevin will be doing that concert on Friday night at the Calu Theater. Oh, I'm sorry.
You're going to have
Yeah, we'll have
breakfast and lunch.
We're going to have breakfast.
People have the
will be
opportunity.
served. It'll be an upscale continental breakfast each morning, and then we'll have lunch served each day. And then we are working with our designated host hotel, which will be the Wild Ranch and Resort Center over on Sidney Baker. And they're working on maybe doing a barbecue for us on either Friday or Saturday night. But so those will be a couple of things that will be coming up, and we'll finalize here within the next week or so.
So, Kenneth, as you know, I do a podcast. I do a podcast on leadership. And I guess the thing that struck me about your second annual Ziglar Explosion is you're really going to incorporate a wide variety of topics, from some almost into the weeds business topics of going behind the numbers, to inspirational talks, to leadership talks, and some really practical advice. So I, for one, am greatly looking forward to the event. Could you give us your website if people wanted to go?
The website will be KRONEAL, KRONEAL.com, and it'll come up with the website for KRONEAL Coaching and Training. And within a week, there will be a link there that you can go in and you can register for the event. So it'll actually be, we'll put the link out on Facebook and all the different arenas that we can. But everybody save the date for January 6th and January 7th. But it should be up and running here within the next week or so.
Well, Kenneth, unfortunately, we're near the end of our time for this episode, but I want to thank you for taking the time to visit with me, and I'm greatly looking forward to the second
Thank you
explosion.
so much. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to your presentation on podcasting for business. I think that's, like you said, I mean, we're coming with all different areas of things that interest people. And I think a lot of people will be very interested in taking their business to the next level, maybe through podcasting.
Kenneth, I look forward to the event.
Have a
I
great
look forward to
day.
continuing this conversation. This is Tom Fox again. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the award-winning Hill Country Podcast. I have a new sister podcast entitled the Hill Country Authors Podcast. So if you're an author, if you've written a book, I would love to visit with you on my podcast. Please give me a shout via email at tfox@tfoxlaw.com. Both the Hill Country Authors Podcast and the Hill Country Podcast are on the Texas Hill Country Podcast Network. I hope you will check out our new podcast network. It's the only podcast network in the Hill Country and the surrounding country. Thanks again for listening. Look forward to visiting with you again.